Okay, how's it going all? Today we're going to read some Mao Zedong. This is was released in 1933. This is Pay Attention to Economic Work. So let's go ahead and get into this. August 20, 1933. This was a speech delivered at the Economic Construction Conference of 17 counties in southern Jiangxi in August of 1933. So let's go ahead. The growing intensity of the Revolutionary War makes it imperative for us to mobilize the masses in order to launch an immediate campaign on the economic front and undertake all possible and necessary tasks of economic construction. Why? Because all of our present efforts should be directed towards gaining victory in the Revolutionary War. And first and foremost, towards gaining complete victory in the fight to smash the enemy's fifth encirclement and suppression campaign. They should be directed towards securing the material conditions which will guarantee food and other supplies for the Red Army, towards bettering the life of the people, and so stimulating their more active participation in the Revolutionary War, towards organizing the masses on the economic front and educating them so as to provide fresh mass strength for the war, and towards consolidating the worker-peasant alliance and the democratic dictatorship of workers and peasants, and strengthening proletarian leadership by building up the economy. Such economic construction is essential for the attainment of all these objectives. This must be clearly understood by everyone engaged in revolutionary work. Some comrades have thought it impossible to spare time for economic construction because the Revolutionary War keeps people busy enough, and they have condemned anyone arguing for it as a right deviationist. In their opinion, economic construction is impossible in the midst of a revolutionary war, and is possible only in the peaceful, tranquil conditions prevailing after final victory. Comrades, such views are wrong. Whoever holds them fails to realize that without building up the economy, it is impossible to secure the material prerequisites for the Revolutionary War, and the people will become exhausted in the course of a long war. Just consider, the enemy is enforcing an economic blockade. Unscrupulous merchants and reactionaries are disrupting our finance and commerce, and the trade of our red areas with the outside is seriously hampered. Will not the Revolutionary War be seriously affected unless these difficulties are overcome? Salt is very dear, and sometimes even unobtainable. Rice is cheap in the autumn and winter, but it becomes terribly dear in spring and summer. All this directly affects the life of the workers and peasants and prevents any improvement. And does it not affect our basic line, the alliance of workers and peasants? If the workers and peasants become dissatisfied with their living conditions, will it not affect the expansion of our Red Army and the mobilization of the masses for the Revolutionary War? Therefore, it is utterly wrong to think that no economic construction should be undertaken in the midst of the Revolutionary War. Those who think this way often say that everything should be subordinated to the war effort, but they fail to understand that to dispense with economic construction who would weaken the war effort rather than subordinate everything to it. Only by extending the work on the economic front and building the economy of the red areas can we provide an adequate material basis for the Revolutionary War, proceed smoothly with our military offenses, and strike effective blows at the enemy's encirclement and suppression campaigns. Only thus can we acquire the resources to enlarge the Red Army and push our front outwards to points thousands of li away, so that when the circumstances prove favorable, the Red Army will be able to attack Nanchang and Kyokyang free, and from all anxiety, and thus relieved of much of the task of provisioning itself, give its undivided attention to fighting. And only thus can we, to a certain extent, satisfy the material needs of the people, so that they will join the Red Army or undertake other revolutionary tasks with even greater enthusiasm. Subordinating everything to the war effort means just this. Among those engaged in revolutionary work in various places, many do not yet understand the importance of economic construction in the Revolutionary War. And there are many local governments which give little attention to discussing the problems of economic construction. The economic departments of the local governments are not yet well organized, and some are still without a director. In others, some incompetent has been assigned simply to kill the post. The formation of cooperatives is still in the initial stage, and only in a few places has the work of regulating food supplies been started. There has been no propaganda among the people for the work of the economic construction, though such propaganda is very important, and mass enthusiasm for it has not been aroused. All this is due to the failure to recognize the importance of economic construction. Through the discussions at this conference and through the reports you will make when you return to your post, we must create mass enthusiasm for economic construction among all government personnel and among all workers and peasants. The importance of economic construction for the Revolutionary War should be made clear to everyone, so that they will do their best to promote the sale of economic construction bonds, develop the cooperative movement, and set up public granaries and storehouses for famine relief everywhere. Each country must establish a sub-department for the regulation of food supplies, with branch offices in important districts and market centers. On the one hand, within our red areas, we should send grain from places within a surplus to those with a deficit, so that it will not pile up in one place and become unattainable in another, and its price will not be too low in one place and too high in another. On the other hand, we should send our grain surplus out of the red areas in a planned way, i.e., not in unlimited quantities, and bring in necessities from the white areas, thus avoiding exploitation by unscrupulous merchants. We must all do our best to develop agriculture and handicrafts, and increase the output of farm implements and lime in order to ensure a bigger crop next year. And we must restore the output of such local products as wolfram, timber, camphor, paper, tobacco, linen, dried mushrooms, and peppermint oil to former levels, and market them in the white areas in quantity. Judged by volume, grain ranks among the first principal outgoing commodities in our trade with the outside areas. About 3 million pickles of unhusked rice are sent out yearly in exchange for necessary consumer goods, or an average of 1 pickle a head of the 3 million population. It cannot surely be less than this. But who is handling this trade? It is handled entirely by the merchants, who exploit us ruthlessly in the process. Last year, they bought unhusked rice from the peasants in Wannan and Taiho counties at 50 cents a pickle, and sold it in Kanchao for 4 yuan, making a 7-fold profit. Take another instance. Every year our 3 million people need about 9 million yuan worth of salt and 6 million yuan worth of cotton cloth. Needless to say, this 15 million yuan trade in salt and cloth has been entirely in the hands of the merchants. We have done nothing about it. The exploitation by the merchants is really enormous. For instance, they go to Maixian and buy salt at 1 yuan for 7 caddies, and then sell it in our areas at 1 yuan for 12 ounces. Is this not shocking profiteering? We can no longer ignore such a state of affairs, and from now on we must handle this trade ourselves. Our Department of Trade with outside areas must make a great effort in this connection. How shall we use the 3 million yuan from economic construction bonds? We plan to use it in the following way. 1 million will be allotted for the Red Army's war expenses, and 2 million will be loaned as capital to the cooperatives, the Bureau for the Regulation of Food Supplies, and the Bureau of External Trade. Of the later amount, the greater part will be used for expanding our external trade and the rest for expanding production. Our objective is not only to expand production, but also to sell our products at fair prices to the white areas, and then purchase salt and cloth cheaply for distribution among our people, so as to break the enemy's blockade and check the merchants' exploitation. We must bring about the continued growth of the people's economy, greatly improve the livelihood of the masses, and substantially increase our public revenue, thus laying firm material foundations for the Revolutionary War and for economic construction. This is a great task, a great class struggle, but we should ask ourselves, can it be accomplished in the midst of fierce fighting? I think it can. We are not talking about building a railway to Longyin, or, for the time being, even about building a motor road to Kanchao. We are not saying that there should be a complete monopoly on the sale of grain, or that the government should handle all the salt and cloth trade, valued at 15 million yuan, to the total exclusion of the merchants. This is not the point we are making or what we are trying to do. What we are talking about and trying to do is to develop agriculture and the handicrafts, and to send out grain and wolfram in exchange for salt and cloth, starting temporarily with a fund of 2 million yuan plus the money invested by the people. Is there anything here that we should not undertake, or that we cannot undertake and achieve? We have already started this work and achieved some results. Thus, year's autumn harvest is between 20 and 25% larger than last year's, or more than our original estimate of 20% increase. In the handicraft industries, the production of farm implements and lime is being restored, and we are beginning to restore wolfram production. The output of tobacco, paper, and timber is recovering. Much has been accomplished this year in the regulation of food supplies. A start has been made on importing salt. It is on these achievements that we base our firm belief in the possibility of further progress. Is it not clearly wrong to say that economic construction is impossible now and has to wait until the war is over? It is thus clear, at the present stage, economic construction must revolve around our central task, the Revolutionary War. Today, the Revolutionary War is our central task, which economic construction should serve, center on, and be subordinated to. It would likewise be wrong to regard economic construction as the center of all our present work, to the neglect of the Revolutionary War, or to conduct it apart from the Revolutionary War. Not until the Civil War is over will it be. Not until the Civil War is over will it be possible and necessary to regard economic construction as the center of all our work. In the midst of a civil war, it is a sheer delusion to try to carry out such peacetime economic construction as can and should be done in the future, but not at present. The tasks for the present are those urgently demanded by the war. Every one of them should serve the war. None is a peacetime undertaking separate from the war. If any comrade entertains the idea of carrying out economic construction apart from the war, he should correct this mistake at once. It will be impossible to get a rapid campaign going on the economic front without a correct style of leadership and correct methods of work. This, too, presents an important problem which this conference must solve. For the comrades here will have a great deal to do as soon as they return, and will have to give guidance to as many people who will be working with them. In particular, the comrades who are working at the township and the city levels and in cooperatives. The food departments, the trade departments, and the purchasing offices are personally engaged in the practical work of mobilizing the people to organize cooperatives, regulating and transporting food supplies, and managing our trade with the outside areas. If their style of leadership is wrong, and if they do not employ correct and efficient methods, the work will be immediately affected. We shall fail to win mass support for the various tasks, and during the coming autumn and winter, next spring and summer, we shall be unable to carry out the whole of the central government's plan for economic construction. For these reasons, I want to direct our comrades' attention to the following. Firstly, mobilize the masses by various organizational means. In the first place, comrades on the presidiums and in the economic and finance departments of the government bodies at all levels must regularly put on their agenda and discuss, supervise, and check up on such items of work as the sale of bonds, the formation of cooperatives, the regulation of food supplies, and the promotion of production and trade. Next, the mass organizations, chiefly the trade unions and poor peasant leagues, must be moved into action. The trade unions should mobilize all their members to join these economic struggles. The poor peasant leagues are powerful bases for mobilizing the masses to build up cooperatives and subscribe to bonds, and they should be given vigorous leadership by district and township governments. Furthermore, we must conduct propaganda for economic construction at village or household meetings, explaining clearly how it is related to the Revolutionary War and discussing in the most practical terms how to improve the livelihood of the masses and increase our strength for the struggle. We should appeal to the people to subscribe to bonds, develop cooperatives, regulate food supplies, consolidate finances, and promote trade. We should call upon them to fight for these slogans and should heighten their enthusiasm. Our objectives cannot be attained unless we use various organizational means to mobilize the masses and conduct propaganda, among them in the manner described. That is to say, unless the presidiums and the economic and finance departments of the government bodies at all levels actively attend to discussing and checking up on the work of economic construction, unless they spur the mass organizations into action and hold mass propaganda meetings. Secondly, we must not be bureaucratic in our methods of mobilizing the masses. Bureaucratic leadership cannot be tolerated in economic construction any more than in any other branch of our revolutionary work. The ugly evil of bureaucracy, which no comrade likes, must be thrown into the cesspit. The methods which all comrades should prefer are those that appeal to the masses, i.e., those which are welcomed by all workers and peasants. One manifestation of bureaucracy is slacking at work due to indifference or perfunctoriness. We must wage a stern struggle against this phenomena. Commandism is another manifestation. To all appearances, persons given to commandisms are not slackers. They give the impression of being hard workers. But in fact, cooperatives set up by commandist methods will not succeed, and even if they appear to grow for a time, they cannot be consolidated. In the end, the masses will lose faith in them, which will hamper their development, to push the sales of bonds in a commandist way and impose arbitrary quotas. Regardless of whether people understand what the bonds are for and of how much they can afford. will ultimately arouse the people's displeasure and make it impossible to achieve good sales. We must reject commandism. What we need is energetic propaganda to convince the masses, and we should develop the cooperatives, promote the sales of bonds, and do all the work of economic mobilization in accordance with the actual conditions and the real feelings of the masses. Thirdly, large numbers of cadres are needed to extend the campaign of economic construction. This is not a matter of scores or hundreds of people, but of thousands and tens of thousands whom we must organize, train, and send to the economic construction front. They will be the commanders and the broad masses, the soldiers on the economic front. People often sigh over the short of cadres. Comrades, is there really a shortage? Innumerable cadres have come to the fore for among the masses who have been steeled in the agrarian struggles, the economic struggles, and the Revolutionary War. How can we say there is a shortage of cadres? Discard this mistaken view. You will see cadres all around you. Fourthly, economic construction today is inseparable, not only from the general task of the war, but from other tasks as well. Only if there is a thorough checkup on land distribution will it be possible to abolish feudal and semi-feudal ownership of land completely, enhance the peasants' enthusiasm for production, and swiftly draw the peasant masses into economic construction. Only if the labor laws are resolutely enforced will it be possible to better the life of the workers, bring them speedily into active participation in economic construction, and strengthen their leadership of the peasants. Only if there is correct leadership in the elections and in the exposure campaigns, which accompany the checkup on land distribution, will it be possible to strengthen our government bodies so that they can give more vigorous leadership in the Revolutionary War and in all our work, including economic work. The raising of the political and cultural level of the people through cultural and educational work is also a most important task in the development of the economy. That the expansion of the Red Army must not be neglected for a single day goes without saying. Everybody understands that without Red Army victories, the economic blockade would still be tighter. On the other hand, economic growth and a better life for the masses will undoubtedly be of great help to the work of expanding the Red Army and inspiring the masses to march eagerly to the front. To sum up, if we achieve all the above tasks, including the very important new one of economic construction, and if we make them all serve the Revolutionary War, then victory in the Revolutionary War will undoubtedly be ours. Okay, so thank y'all for reading that with me. This is Pay Attention to Economic Work by Tung, August 20, 1933. So yeah, this is see notes. Let's read some notes here. Between 1930 and 1934, Chiang Kai-shek launched 5 large-scale onslaughts against the Red Area centered on Juchin, Jiangxi. They were called encirclement and suppression campaigns. The 5th of such campaigns began in October 1st through Chiang Kai-shek had been making active preparations for it since the summer. 2. A campaign to check up land distribution was carried out in the Red Area after the agrarian reform to ascertain whether the land had been properly redistributed. 3. Exposure campaigns were democratic campaigns in which the people were encouraged to expose misdeeds by the functionaries of the democratic government. Okay, yeah. So this is Pay Attention to Economic Work. It was a speech given in 1933 by Mao Zedong. Thank y'all for tuning in. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, notification bell, and subscribe button. Tumblr and Medium. Hit me up there. I put stuff out on Medium from time to time. Please go ahead and check me out there too. Y'all have a great day. All those are Marxist saw. All those are Marxist saw. Marxist saw, SAW. So y'all have a great day and Dodada Goi.